So it's been just over 2 months now since I first reviewed the Nintendo Switch 2, and to be honest I didn't expect the video to take off the way it did. It ended up getting over 7,000 views and more than 200 likes, which for a small creator like me means a lot. And I'm genuinely really appreciative to everyone who commented and liked the video. The video was more of a first person impression review, what it felt like to pick up the console for the first time as someone who's never owned a Switch before. And that's why I waited to make this one, because let's be real, you can't fully judge your console in just a few days, and anyone can give a hot take after 24 hours, but I wanted to see how it actually fits into my day-to-day life. What games I keep playing, how often I reach for it, and whether the excitement wore off. Also, just to be clear, this video isn't going to go over all the specs again. I already covered all that in my original review and I'll link it down below if you're interested in the technical side. This video is more about the experience and the stuff that doesn't show up on paper. As a first time buyer, do I still think the Switch 2 is worth it after 2 months? Well, let's talk about it. Let's start with what I think is still the Switch 2's biggest strength, portability. And I know that's not a shocking take, right? The Switch 2 has always been praised for that, but as someone who's never owned a Switch before, it still kinda blows my mind. Being able to play a proper game like Zelda or even Cyberpunk from a train seat or in the passenger seat of a car feels like cheating, in the best way. I've taken this thing on road trips, played it while waiting for appointments, and even just kicked back on the sofa while I couldn't be bothered to sit at my desk. It's pick up and play in the most literal sense, and even 2 months later the novelty hasn't worn off. You don't have to boot up a full setup, you don't have to wait for updates every time, it's just there and ready. And I think that's why it still earns a place in my daily life, even if it's not my main console. Now on the flip side, let's talk about what's changed over the last 2 months. When I first got the Switch 2, I was using it every day. That new console hype was real. But now that the honeymoon phase is over, I've realised something. When I'm at home, I barely touch it. I find myself defaulting back to my Xbox and PC pretty much every single time. Bigger screen, more comfortable controller, and a familiar setup. I'm not saying that the Switch 2 isn't capable, it really is, but I've realised it doesn't compete with a full console when I'm sat at home with everything set up already. That's why I say it's not my go-to, it's more of an extension of my setup, a side piece. And honestly that's okay, it doesn't have to be your main console to be valuable. So let's talk about the games, because this is probably the biggest reason people buy the Switch. Over the past couple of months, I've played a pretty wide mix. I've tried Zelda, Mario Kart, Cyberpunk, and even a few 89p indie games from the store, just for fun. And here's what I've realised. Cyberpunk is cool on a handheld, it really is, but that's not what the Switch 2 is made for. Most people don't buy a Switch to play third-party AAA games, they buy it for the Nintendo experience. Games like Zelda, Mario Kart, Pokemon, Animal Crossing, that's what this console is built around. That's where it feels the most polished, the most fun, and honestly the most nostalgic. If you're into those kind of games, the Switch 2 absolutely delivers. If not, you might find yourself asking why you didn't just get a Steam Deck or stick to your PlayStation. Quick note on the battery life, I did a test playing Cyberpunk with the brightness maxed out. I started at 92% and the console died after an hour and 51 minutes. Not awful, but not great either. If you're playing simpler games like Mario Kart, you'll get more time out of it. But if you're gaming on the go for more than a couple of hours, you'll definitely want a power bank or charger. It's good enough for short bursts, just don't expect marathon sessions without plugging it in. Here's where I want to be real with you, because on paper I should love this console, but in practice I've used it way less than I thought I would. It's not because the Switch 2 isn't good, it's honestly great, but when I'm at home with a full-sized monitor, a comfy chair and either a controller or mouse and keyboard, I just naturally lean towards my Xbox or PC. And I've noticed this pattern. I'll sometimes spend all day looking forward to playing a game, hyping it up in my head, then I sit down, open the store, scroll through it for 10 minutes and just shut the thing off. I don't know if it's decision fatigue or just being too tired after the day's over, but that energy to sit and play isn't always there anymore. When you only have an hour or two of free time in a day, you really start picking and choosing how to spend it. So I think the bigger question isn't whether the Switch 2 is good, it's who it's good for. If you're someone who travels a lot, or you're always on the move and want gaming on the go, it's a no-brainer. Or if you grew up with Nintendo and love their exclusive titles, this thing is basically built for you. But if you're already deep into a console ecosystem like Xbox or PlayStation, and most of your gaming happens at home, then the Switch 2 might not become your daily driver. It's fun, it's convenient, but it might end up being a backup console, something you use here or there, rather than your main setup. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. Not every console needs to be a game changer in your life. Sometimes it just fills a gap, and that's exactly what the Switch has done for me. Now don't get me wrong, I still think the Switch 2 is a great console. It's polished, reliable, and does exactly what it's supposed to do. But I've realised that the way I experience gaming has changed, and that's less about the console and more about where I'm at in life. I grew up on the Nintendo Wii, spent hours on the thing, bowling, Mario Kart, Wii Sports, and back then it felt like gaming was at the centre of my world. Fast forward to now and life looks different. I've got more to do, less free time, and when I do sit down to game, it's got to hit right. That shift doesn't mean gaming is less important, it just means I'm more selective, and I think a lot of people around my age probably feel the same way. So if you're wondering whether this console will bring that same excitement, it can, but it's also okay if it doesn't hit like it used to. That doesn't make it a bad console, it just makes us different players that we were growing up. At the end of the day, the Switch 2 hasn't completely changed how I game, but it's definitely added something new to the mix. It's not my daily driver, and I don't think it has to be. It's become one of those things I pick up when I want something different, a break from the usual, a more relaxed way to game. And honestly, that's a win in my book. Not everything needs to be life-changing, sometimes it's enough for something to just be fun, convenient and reliable. And that's what this is. If you're still trying to decide whether or not to get one, I'd say base it on how you actually spend your time. Do you travel a lot? Do you want those exclusive Nintendo titles? Or are you just looking for a second console that fits around your life instead of taking it over? I think it's easy to get caught up in all the hype, but the best way to know if something's right for you is to be honest about how you actually use things. And if you're like me, you'll probably appreciate what the Switch 2 adds, even if it doesn't completely replace your current setup. Thanks for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I've got more videos coming soon, so if this helped you in any way, feel free to subscribe or drop a comment. I'd love to hear what your experience has been like. Until next time, take it easy.